Hey, welcome back to another edition of Political Breakfast. We are always so glad that you are here and listening and making us what we are here at WABE. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. All of us are here today. We got strategist Brian Robinson and Tharon Johnson and our producer Lily Oppenheimer. Happy Monday to you all.
Yeah. And it's Quinn's birthday, so big celebration around the Robinson household
Happy
today.
Birthday.
Yes.
That's our Girl Scout,
Yes,
right?
yes, it is. Yes, although I don't know that that's going to continue. I think my days as Girl Scout cookies selling may be over.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Quinn. Yeah, she looks fantastic on social media. I saw the post. So, Brian, you are a proud dad, and Karina, I'm sure, orchestrated everything. The lighting was perfect. The scenery,
Yes.
the choreography was good.
Yes.
The choreography.
Yes.
Yeah, it's choreography
Do
that goes
for your
into
little girls. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I got a lecture last night about how I've done nothing, and I'm like, why would I do something?
Why would you? I'm a
See,
man.
Lisa, I know my listeners are probably wondering, how does Tharon Johnson know what's going on in the Robinson household? Well, I spent 10 years with this guy. And I've not spent that long with Karina, but definitely knowing y'all's dynamic,
yes.
She's definitely the boss and the proactive planner in the household.
Yeah, she is the planner.
Getting things done. Oh, God. How old is Quinn?
She's turning
How old
9
is she?
today. And
What is that, fourth grade?
Third
or fourth
yeah, she's
grade?
an older third grader.
Okay.
And I'll say she went down to Callaway Gardens over the weekend with 2 other 9-year-old girls and just had a blast in the corn maze. And
had a ball.
Yeah, it was a great great weekend for her.
Well, happy birthday. Happy birthday, Quinn. How about football? I didn't watch much football this weekend. How was football for you?
Dogs look better.
So right there, let's
had
pause.
To think about it. You
No.
paused. That was a long pregnant pause. What was that about?
You know, B-Rock slapped me on the wrist last week when I went out to Bobo.
That's right.
He made a good point. You defended Bobo, so I'm coming here this week to say, you know what, Brian, you were joined by a few of your fellow UGA dog fans, like myself, and they reminded me that the defense coordinator needs to be called out.
Yep.
But also that Kirby warned us at the beginning of the year that these guys are going to be tough to coach. Remember? I mean, I'm paraphrasing. But I think that the Kentucky game was a big one. Florida, who played well.
Man, that's scary now, isn't it?
That worries me. And we still got Texas.
They go through these trends, don't they? These teams.
And poor Arch Manning. You're talking about somebody who was hyped up in the preseason with an enormous amount of pressure on him, and I feel sorry for the guy. But we got Texas coming up too, who I think is going to get up for us. So we got about 3. And look, I'm gonna say this, B. Rob. I know you're not gonna like it, but these Yellow Jackets.
No.
That game is going to be
no.
You are absolutely right.
You are absolutely right.
Oh my gosh,
I went to the Georgia Tech Clemson game, and it was a great atmosphere. The crowd was really into it, and that was such an exciting finish, kicking the field goal to win as the clock was ticking to 0. This Brent Key guy is. I mean, he's obviously really good because it's really hard to win at Georgia Tech. It's hard to recruit there because of the academics, and he's somehow pulling it off. So kudos to them, man. And that's going to be the day after Thanksgiving, that Friday afternoon, that game, and that will be a barn burner in a national game.
Oh, some exciting times ahead. Well, not so exciting times for our TSA workers at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. Lily found the union guy who represents a lot of those workers out there. We did a nice little chat with him last week, and I didn't realize their situation was so grim.
Federal workers go without pay while congressional members still get their pay. I don't think that that's fair, because for you to still receive a paycheck and the person who's out on the front line actually doing the work to be held in limbo and moved around, and their benefits and everything is being played with, that it feels like a game, and it feels like we're pawns.
They're not getting full paychecks. Once the government shut down, they're not getting full pay. They're still required to report and smile and check those bags, and I just feel for them. I just really feel for them.
You know some that smile? I'm in a different line. I'm in a different line.
Yeah. People are glad to be working. Yeah, I do.
Well, you got to get that. You got to go through that clear line over there.
Yeah, I finally did.
They have
I finally upgraded.
Some nice professional
Does it
people.
I don't know.
The clear line is shorter.
Check.
Yes,
that's good enough. Yeah.
But listen, and I know. Listen, let me. This one gets me really hyped up because let me be fully disclosed. Because I know B-Rob has talked about not having to take his shoes off anymore going through TSA line. That was a monumental moment for him in his life existence that he finally did not have to do that.
I hated it.
I'm also someone who has previously said that to TSA.
Just hit that check. Just get that TSA check.
I got it.
Yeah, you got to get the pre-check and you got to get the digital ID. Yeah. But B-Rob and I worked in Congress, and when we were coming up through the ranks, there used to be a poll to come out every year, right? You know, who's the worst federal agency? And TSA for a long time was on that list. I mean, if they weren't one, they were number two. But as I travel so much on a weekly basis, the TSA is so important to how we not only make our flights, but also just the security level that is required. So these are women and men who are trained to now go through all different type of things. I can't tell you how many people I hear that have gotten guns confiscated from their bags, but they forgot to take them out. And then, by the way, if you get locked up in Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, you go to Clayton County. You don't go to Fulton County. So, Lisa, at a time where, yes, I'm one of those travelers who I'm 60 to 45 minutes hot coming into the airport. I'm always frowning at them, mad at them, but I know they look back at me and say, what, you should have left earlier. But these are people who are not being paid good money anyway. And when I heard that news, and thank you, Lily and Lisa, for uncovering that they have been not paid fully and there have been some cuts and layoffs. I mean, this is a national security issue. And because if you're not paying people to do a job that they already feel that they are not being paid enough to do, and then they have the uncertainty that the government is shut down and we don't know when the shutdown is going to end, then I just think that is something that I'm very happy that Congresswoman Nikema Williams highlighted also, and Mayor Dickens, because we operate the world's busiest and most efficient airport. We have more travelers come through the Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson airport than anyone in the world. So, you know, I want to apologize for, you know, every time I've come through there not smiling to these TSA folks because they have a really big job to do, and the technology that is required for these screening machines is something that I think also that is there. Because how many times have we gone to the TSA line and we are like, man, why isn't that line open? Okay, why can't I go to that line or that lane, right? That lane. And so if we don't have workers, Lisa, then it's going to be less people working, less lanes, more people waiting to get on their flights. And that causes anger. And then that translates over into the plane with these flight attendants get all these mad folks because they had to wait in the TSA line so much. So this is something that I think is very bad for the Trump administration, very bad for Republicans. And thank you to our leaders, the mayor, the congresswoman, and our senators who I know go through the airport a lot too, for stepping up and try to provide these workers with some relief.
Yeah, Brian, any thoughts on that?
Well, one thing we have to keep in mind with the TSA workers is these are largely working class workers. These are folks who haven't made so much money in the last few years that they have a little bit of cushion and they can go to work for a couple of weeks and then, you know, get by until they can get paid again. These are folks who probably live, in many cases, week to week, month to month, and have got rent or mortgages to pay. And I feel a lot of sympathy for what they are going through. I don't think that it's fair or right. If you got to show up every day, it costs you money to get to work. You are putting gas in the tank or you are filling a MARTA card to get to that location, and we got to take care of these folks. Now, you know, I got a response there and said it's bad for the Trump administration. I think it's kind of yet to be determined how the politics are going to play out on this. You know, are Democrats overplaying their hand with the health care thing? I do think that there is some element of Democrats needing to take a stand and be obstructive to just doing a CR, just keeping the status quo, which is what Republicans are asking for here, because the Democratic base is demanding obstruction. And Chuck Schumer, of course, is scared of the left. He's scared of being taken down internally. He's scared of a primary opponent in a New York Senate race. And the country's kind of being held hostage by some of those dynamics. Now, I don't know that it's worth having a debate about. Democrats are going to have a different perspective than I am on that. But the responsible thing to do here is to just pass a clean CR and get these people paid. And then Republicans are now saying, hey, Democrats, we'll have a talk about this demand that you're making as soon as everybody's back to work and everybody's back in Congress and able to get back to work.
So if I can respond real quick, because I think that now we got to have a conversation about the shutdown. We gave the Republicans a chance. B-Rob remembers this. Chuck Schumer, the leader of the Senate, got criticized because he went along with a bill that basically he believed that had he not sent a signal to the Democratic establishment to support this bill, that it would have basically led to a government shutdown then. What we've seen since January 20th, Lisa, is a president who's come in with a more informed, more qualified team who's done nothing but try to eliminate programs, fire workers, and to really decrease the influence and amount of federal employees that we have in this country. He's also retaliating against states who did not vote for him and rewarding Republican states. I actually want to applaud the Democrats for what they're doing, because let's just go deeper into what our listeners so they can understand. Right now in this country, we have 24 million people that if we do not extend the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, then they're going to lose their health insurance. Right here in Georgia, we have 1.4 million working class Georgians. And by the way, B-Rob, I believe some of these folks may be some of these actual TSA workers, because not everyone has an employer who will actually give them insurance, and not everyone qualifies for Medicaid and Medicare. These are people who, whether or not, let's say Brian and I have our small business. I don't know about you, B-Rob. I don't want to ever count your money, but I can't offer insurance to all of my employees. I only offer it to one. I think you just kind of a one-man show, but you know, you getting all this business, you may want to expand one day. So if someone comes and works for you, they got two options, Lisa and Lily. Either they got to have a spouse who they can get on his or her insurance, or they have to go out and do what we call single payer insurance, right? They had to go out and actually buy insurance. What the Affordable Care Act did is that it gave people an option who didn't have an employer that was giving it to them, don't qualify for Medicaid and Medicare, but they can go out and enroll in a federal program so they can have the basic stuff. Brian, I'm glad you brought this point up about, you know, where we are in this country as far as this federal shutdown. Of course, I'm going to tell you the truth and what I believe. That is, the Republicans are responsible for the shutdown for a few reasons. Number one, the Republicans control the White House, they control the U.S. House, they control the U.S. Senate, and they have a 6-3 majority vote on the Supreme Court. But also to take some words that President Trump used himself back in 2011 and also in 2013. He said, I quote, his words, not mine, was that if the government shuts down, that's a sign of a weak president. And so I think that the president's unavailability and unwillingness to talk to Democrats ahead of before we got to this point is one of the reasons why we're in the shutdown. And what Democrats are asking is that, look, let's revisit some of the cuts that were made to Medicaid across the country. We've seen that people are very concerned about those cuts. And then the second thing we're asking is that at a time where the Affordable Care Act, the subsidies and the credits are set to expire at the end of the year, why don't Congress go back to Washington, vote to extend these subsidies, which, by the way, will prevent 24 million people in this country, 1.4 million in Georgia, from losing their health care. B-Rob just talked about these TSA workers, right? Working class people in Georgia. Many of these folks are a part of that 1.4 million. They don't have an employer that offers them health care. They don't qualify for Medicaid and Medicare, so they have to go out and either purchase the insurance themselves, and there was only a few options available. Last thing I would say is this, is that if we don't act quickly, premiums are going to go up. And what Democrats are saying is that we don't want people's premiums to go up 5 and 6, 7 times. So yes, healthcare is a priority. And this last thing about it being a Democratic narrative that we want to offer federal health care to undocumented immigrants is just blatantly false. And first of all, you can't do it. You're not even able to do it. There was a law passed in 1986 during the Reagan administration that said that the undocumented immigrants can only receive emergency health care at emergency rooms, right? Now, that is something that Democrats have, said. So, and then, yes, before B-Rob said, there was some stuff pointed out in Schumer's response about undocumented immigrants, but we want to basically make sure that we take care of the home team first, the citizens that are here legally, and then we can have a robust conversation about what we do with the current law as it's written about undocumented immigrants. Yeah,
that's right. Thanks for pointing that out. Speaker Mike Johnson over the weekend pointed out some of the memos produced by the Democrats that did suggest there was an openness to providing health care to illegal immigrants. Now, are people who are here not as citizens who are seeking asylum, whatever, however they want to frame it. The thing is, this is an issue where I wish that they could just come together and say, we're going to have a clean CR, keep the government going, and we're going to let the Democrats introduce legislation to deal with this, and we'll debate it in the week after. Just make a plan to do it, to get it going. I think there's a lot of Republicans that if the issue of the subsidies on the healthcare exchange came up for a vote, a lot of Republicans would be on board with saving the subsidies. The people who are on these subsidies are people who work. These are working Americans. Many of them are self-employed, like Tharon and I are. And I am lucky in that I have a wife who's got a job that provides my health insurance. That's a great, great benefit to me. But for those who don't, the exchange is where they go. That is how the American system works. And we will see big increases in those premiums if there's not action taken. I don't think necessarily that Republicans will get the blame for the shutdown. I think the Democrats are going to take just as much blame because we have a very tribal response. Republicans are going to see it as, the Democrats' fault. Democrats are going to see it as the Republicans' fault. That's just kind of where we are now. I don't know that there's this big slide one way to the other way that we would have had in the past. We're just too tribal for that. But
what are your thoughts? You've got Representative Buddy Carter, a Republican, and you've got John Ossoff saying they're going to give up their paychecks.
Hey, it's good politics, man. It's good politics. And, and for most folks, a lot of these guys need their paycheck. For the ones who aren't independently wealthy, they need to take that paycheck, and I think they just need to stay quiet about it and just go on about their business. But for somebody like Buddy Carter, who's worth a lot of money, John Ossoff's worth enough money. He has a wife who's a doctor, so like Tharon, got one of those sugar mamas at home and takes care of everything. And
so you get smile every day.
Keep my money, I think that's good politics for both of them. But those are two guys who can afford it, right? And I don't begrudge those who can't afford it.
A lot of people can't,
taking their paycheck, even if you're a member of Congress.
Right.
So,
Well, Mayor Dickens and Representative Nikema Williams trying to give those TSA employees a break. They're going to give them free parking, I believe, during their work hours, and they'll also get meal vouchers. So, a little bit helps, during times like this. So I applaud them for doing that.
That's good politics, too.
Great politics on both sides. And one thing, Lisa, I would say this. If you look at all the national polling, and Brian, I know he spends his Sundays like I spend my Sunday, looking at the national shows, but also looking at polling. The majority of polling I've seen, probably 3/4 of the polling, show that the American people blame the Republicans for this shutdown. And it's solely because they are in control. And I think that when you are in control, leaders have to lead, and they need to govern. And so what I've been very proud about is that Democrats, we've learned our lessons. We've been very, very specific about why the government should not be shut down and how we believe that the Republicans, because they're in charge and they're leaders, is the people responsible for it. But I got to give the Republicans some credits, too. This undocumented immigrants sort of narrative goes right into re-exciting their base.
Yeah.
But I just want to come on here and say that's not a part of the national strategy for Democrats.
No, I absolutely agree. It really has sort of stunted the Democrat messaging on it to some degree. But I'll repay the favor there, Tharon, and give Democrats some credit. They are finally dying on a hill that's not over something extreme and outside of the mainstream of Americans. They're not doing this over girls' sports issues, for example. This is something that I think Republicans need to have a very serious internal conversation about, because many of these people on the exchange are Republicans. Many of them are working class, some of them are small business owners, and they vote for Trump. They vote for Republican members of Congress, and this is something that's going to need to be talked about internally and then go forward, because I think really one thing we have to be guarded against is Democrats letting this. If I was a Democrat, if I really believe that this exchange thing is going to blow up on the Republicans, I would vote for a clean CR and then blame Republicans when prices go up. That's what I would do in their shoes, right? But I don't know that stopping this for a very long time, not doing the clean CR, is going to work out for them in the long term.
Yeah, almost a week into this shutdown. So we'll see where things go from here. And certainly we'll be here to talk about it. Coming up later in the week, I want to talk about the U.S. Senate rate. Lots of money being spent or being reported, we're being told. So we're going to chat about that a little bit and some more politics. So we hope you'll join us then.